Fingers crossed. It looks like we're live streaming. Looks like we're recording. So that's fantastic. Get my little timer going there, and everything is hunky dory indeed. Feeling ready, John?
I'm born ready.
Oh, we've frozen.
Oh,
good timing. No, we're
am I
back,
still?
man.
We're back. Okay.
We froze before we did anything, so that's all good. Just to make sure you're freezing a little bit more.
That is strange. I've got.
No, I think we're going to get away with it. No, we're not.
I just rebooted. Let me shut down some browsers.
Sure, man.
Yeah, I've just got one browser window open, not a lot of tabs, and I'm in Zoom. I think what else have I got going? Shut that down. Yeah, I don't have very much open at all.
No, I think we'll be okay, man. It's probably one of those minor blips you get.
I'm happy to reboot the Zoom connection. Want me to try that, or?
I think we're fine. I mean, the first 5 minutes of us talking to each other, maybe when the live stream kicked in, it was just like, that's a lot of internet, you know? Maybe it was my end. Who knows? We're about 200 years behind you here in Australia. You know, we're still figuring things out.
Oh, I hardly think that.
Awesome, man. Well, let's do it. Welcome back to the Coaches to the Moon podcast, ladies and gentlemen, episode 70. I'm really, really excited today to be joined by John Tarnoff. He's a career transition coach. He is a speaker. He is a university educator. He's a TEDx veteran himself and a best-selling author with his book, Boomer Reinvention, How to Create Your Dream Career Over 50, all the way from sunny Los Angeles. John Tarnoff, thank you so much for being here, mate.
Hey, Alex, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Isn't it fun, the connections we can make via the internet these days? We would have never met each other.
That's right. This is phenomenal. What a world we live in, right?
I'm super happy, man. Super happy. And I think you're our first guest from, what do they call LA? Tinseltown? Tinseltown.
Tinseltown. That's right.
Our first guest from Tinseltown. And you have the smile and the tan. You fit right in. You look fantastic, bro. So
thanks.
First question, man. First question for you, John. What's your favorite song by The Who?
Oh, Kids Are All Right.
Is it actually?
It is.
There we go. So context for everyone. I watched your TEDx talk, which is called The Kids Are Still All Right. And you opened it up with a little quote about The Who. We'll get into that conversation in a second. But I'm a big rock and roll fan. My dad got me into all this stuff.
All right.
So I feel very lucky that my playlists and the music in our house is all about 60 years old now.
It's amazing the kind of the compatibility between millennials and boomers on music is crazy. My daughter's 30, so we have these insane conversations about music, and it's just great. I love it.
That's fantastic, man. And you think about things like we still play some Elvis in our house. Like my wife and I, our wedding songs were all Elvis and Bobby Vinton and this kind of stuff. And that's even going back further.
That's
and
great.
Then
yeah.
My daughters love it. And they're 2 years old, my daughters, right? And so I've got twin daughters, 2 years old, and they can instantly get into that kind of music and sway and dance around. And it's just so funny to me that in like 20 years time, that Elvis stuff will be almost 100 years old. Will it still be relevant?
That's crazy. Yeah.
So, but the Who is a absolute rock stars, man. England in the 70s, cool, in the 60s, cool place to be.
Yeah.
So your TEDx talk was called The Kids Are Still All Right. And it was touching a lot on how you had massive career struggles early on. I think you had 18 jobs, a lot of which you got fired from or quit, or things that just didn't work out. And then you're now helping a lot of people who have been through big career transitions, and you're helping them to kind of reinvent themselves.
Yes.
In that talk, you touched on a 5-step method that you use for career coaching people. Can you give us a brief rundown of your 5-step method?
Sure. So the idea on this is that coaching for careers, as far as I'm concerned, has got to be an inside to outside process. Traditionally, career coaching is about how do you fit yourself into the the hiring structure that companies are imposing. So it's very employer centric. And this is because most career coaches come out of HR and they come out of the corporate world. So their mindset, nothing against it, but their mindset is very much, how do we help you fit into the corporate world? And I think times have changed. And I think for every generation, and we've seen this, I think globally over the last couple of years since the pandemic, people deciding, wait a minute, I want to take greater control over the way I live my life. It's like a veil was lifted with remote work and the empowerment that people have discovered by working remotely and controlling their lives and understanding what Tim Ferriss knew in 2008 with the 4-hour work week, which is that it's not about the hours that you put in, it's about the value that you deliver, right? So my whole career coaching philosophy is about teaching people to adopt that contemporary mindset, particularly for people who are a little bit older, who are kind of struggling with their identity now at age 40, age 50, age 60, about, well, I'm kind of being pushed out of the job market. I can't afford to retire. I don't really want to retire. I'm going to be living longer. What am I going to do? Spend 30 years in retirement? I want to keep working. How do I do it? So the 5-step methodology starts with this idea of first reflecting on who you are on the inside and reframing the ideas, the limiting beliefs that you have about who you are, how the world works, what you can do, kind of being curious again about rediscovering life and your career. And then about getting feedback. The second step is getting feedback from trusted advisors, people that you've known for a long time, so that you can get a third-party perspective on how you've performed, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what you should work on. And then the third part about this is acceptance. We've all got baggage as we evolve through our careers.
Sorry, John, can I pause you for 1 second, mate?
Yep.
I'm getting a lot of phrasing here, man. I'm getting a lot of phrasing, and I'm missing all your gold.
No, I'm so sorry.
All your gold.
Yeah, we may need to
we've lost
the connection. Yeah, now
lost him completely.
Yeah, now you're frozen. Yeah,
mate, you were delivering some absolute bangers just then, and
I can deliver them again.
Yeah,
I know we're live, so hopefully we can pull this back.
That's fine. That's fine.
Are we smoothed out?
It feels like we're smoothed out. Yeah, it feels like we get to be nice and smooth in the lovely in the small talk, and then when the actual.
So maybe I should go back to starting with the first step of the 5 steps.
Please.
Right. So the first idea is, because this is an inside out process, because you're trying not to fit into a system, but to kind of present yourself in a way that you're going to stand out, is to reflect and reframe limiting beliefs about who you are, how the world works, what you can do, what you're afraid you can't do. Second step is getting feedback from trusted advisors, people who can tell you, hey, I've known you for a long time. Here's what's working. Here's what's not working. It's data collection, right? You want to get your research in line about what you're good at, what you're not so good at, where you should focus now at this point in your career. The third step is accepting, and this is really important. We have baggage that we have accumulated throughout our lives and our careers, and you can't just you can't kind of go through life and think, well, this is something that really upset me. I really screwed up on this job, and I'm not going to go back to that. I'm not going to think about it. I'm saying you got to think about it. You got to accept all of your screw ups as lessons and opportunities to move forward. Because I guarantee you, if you're in a job interview and someone says to you, so tell me about that experience at that job where you left that job, 3 years ago, what happened there? And they fired you and you're ashamed of it. If you have a problem talking about it, they're going to pick up on it. And I guarantee you, it's an X mark on your interview, because they're going to say, well, he's a nice guy, but he was really uncomfortable about that leaving that job, as opposed to you saying, hey, it just didn't work out. And here's why it didn't work out. And here's what I learned about that experience. And here's how I recovered from it. And most importantly, here's how I'm going to put that experience and those lessons to work in this job that I'm interviewing for today. So that's a really important threshold. And once you've figured out those 3 steps, the reframing, the feedback, the listening step, I call it in the book, and the accepting step, then you're ready to start reinventing, right? So the third process there is this process of self-creation, of saying, well, what do I love? What do I want to do? What am I good at? What can I get paid for? It's this concept of ikigai. I mean, I've since learned that since the talk, right? The Japanese philosophy of purpose in life. So you really need to use a whiteboard process or image maps or a journaling process to begin to work with these ideas so that you can get a clearer sense of what it is that you want to do, how you want to. You don't have to completely reinvent your career. You can take your current job and say, what would I tweak from what I'm doing now to kind of make some subtle changes that are going to have big impact on the work that I do, the value that I deliver. So once you've got that in order, and by the way, LinkedIn is a fantastic place to be a canvas for this value creation, this value proposition creation. You know, your headline, for example, should never be your job title. It should be the 3, 4, 5 roles that you perform best, a variety of things that you do, using words like leader, strategist, expert, so that people get a sense of what the impact is and the change and transformation that you can bring. And then your about section, which people kind of don't get, is not about what you've done. It's not this text recitation of what you've done. It's about who you are and why you do what you do. Because people hire people. They don't hire lists of skills. They don't hire computers. And you want to stand out and be unique. What's unique about you is your experience, is your philosophy of work and of life, and your aspirations for where you want to go. So you want to put that all into your about section and your profile. And once you've done that, you're in line for the final step, which is connecting. You're going to get work through the people that you connect with. You're not going to get work by submitting resumes to online job sites and kind of blindly going into this pool, this faceless pool of endless applications, dealing with recruiters who are overwhelmed. You want to build real connections with real people and have them refer you to open positions. And that, in a nutshell, is the 5-step process.
Lot to unpack there, John.
Yeah.
It's a lot of
That's why there's a recording.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's a lot of great stuff, man. I think we can get a sound bite from every single one of them because they're huge. I think a lot of people, especially more like me, people who've never done the whole corporate thing, we don't really get LinkedIn. And I know that you've developed a great following on LinkedIn. You've got about 10,000 connections on there and followers, which is really impressive. Yeah. And basically, like, for me, it does seem like a bit of a resume site. But what you're saying, people hire people, is super duper interesting. And that reinventing step is very, very, it's personal branding, right? It's kind of what a lot of these gurus talk about now. It's not, it's you are your own brand. We're not just part of a company, a suit anymore. We are selling ourselves every day.
Yeah. And I would say I call it professional branding because it's not just about you personally. It's about you professionally, the value that you deliver professionally. How are you going to move the needle? What are the results that you're going to deliver? Marketing 101 is not about the product, but about the transformation. It's about the outcome. You don't want to sell yourself on what you do and how great it is. You want to sell yourself on how the customer is going to feel when you're done, right? You want to paint this picture of what their life is going to be like, transformed by the work that you do. So it's never about you. It's always about them, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm saying in your LinkedIn material, you want to orient everything that you're saying and representing to stimulate the imagination of the other person on the other side of that profile who's reading that and going, whoa, this really resonates deeply with me. I want to connect with this person.
That's super interesting, man.
Right. And by the way, about the corporate thing, I get what you're saying about the corporate thing, but I think this is I, well, I'll just say it. I think the whole corporate mentality is kind of a dinosaur mentality. And I think when I see a profile that has an about section written in the third person, seasoned corporate executive with X years experience running teams, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, please, just shoot me now. Because who is this person? This is, no one wrote this for them. They wrote it for themselves, but they wrote about it with this detachment.
Yeah.
That's a mindset of 20, 30 years ago, right? We want to be in the first person. We want to be immediate. We want to be accessible. And that goes to creative entrepreneurship much more so than it does to corporate. And I think corporate is starting to realize that if they don't get more creativity, differentiation, diversity on every level, they're dead, right? There is no corporation.
Very, very interesting, man. I don't like to corporate bash, but we always end up sort of somewhat doing it on this podcast. But I guess that's why we're all here doing a podcast, and not sitting in a cubicle somewhere. Nothing against those people, but I think the people who work in corporate are doing their best. But the whole system does seem a little bit, Paleolithic, as you said.
The future is freelance, and right, like it or not, and it really works for everyone. I think there are certain disadvantages in terms of pay and taxation and social services and all that, depending on what country you're in. But ultimately, it's a better deal for someone to be really focused on what they do best and delivering on that and doing it for multiple clients versus going to work every day doing something that you're kind of okay with, but there's all sorts of other stuff going on, and you got to deal with politics, you got to deal with the infrastructure, and I think it's not great for companies either. It's a time waster and a cost waster for companies as well. So it may seem cruel, a lot of the downsizing that's going on and shifts in corporate staffing, but ultimately, I think it makes all of us resilient if we start to think of ourselves as freelancers, as having our own value proposition and being able to sell it as contractors, as consultants, not as employees.
Yeah, totally, man. I think there's a lot of opportunity in what's come out of the last couple of years, especially if you can take on board this advice that you're giving to reinvent yourself, accept the things that have gone wrong, and then connect. Because a lot of the people listening, all 6 of them, are coaches. And coaching it's a freelance gig. You've got to be, you don't go in and work for one person. You got to have multiple clients at once. And yes, you lose the security. So there's kind of like limitless potential of income, but also limitless potential for failure. And I've been in the failure one I was in there for ages, because you get a couple of clients, you take your foot off the pedal, and then you think you're fine. And then suddenly they end, and that's my whole income. They've finished their program. What do I do? So that I suppose comes to the reinvention, the self-creation of yourself, branding yourself as that expert and selling the outcomes that people can get from working with you.
Exactly. And
no one
never
really
take
minds.
your foot off the pedal. Never take your foot off the pedal.
No, never settle, man. Even if you don't have to be hustling 24/7, but you've always got to have a plan for the next step, right? Someone said to me, never let one client be more than 20% of your income.
Oh, that's right. That's right. And we all heard stories about consulting practices that fail because they are too afraid to fire the big client, right? And that big client is holding them back.
Yeah, because it takes too much of it. It's like 80-20 rule, isn't it? Like 80% of I've got them. We've all got those clients.
That's right.
They take way too much of your time. And some of the best clients you've got, they want their 15 minutes a week and just a little email, and they're good, man. So that's super interesting. The one that I thought was an interesting one was when you were talking about reframing your own stories and the things you told yourself, because yes, you're working with mostly people over, over 50 and the boomers, as they say. And I think a big step that a lot of people take once they've had a career is they say, I'm going to go into coaching now. And they have all the skills to deliver coaching to people, but not to create a business out of it. You created a great business, but you mentioned that one of the things people think they can't do is get onto the internet, work digitally. And so that holds them back from sharing their skills and their impact with the world. So when did you start getting online? Firstly, did you have those thoughts when you first started getting online, and how did you overcome that?
I'm a bit of an anomaly in that I've always been an early adopter. I've always been interested in technology. I started out when I was a kid tinkering around with cameras. I was always interested in still and movie cameras and taking things apart. So I'm kind of a bad example, and was on personal computers in the early 80s.
Sure.
And hacking into the back of those original old little gray or putty Macintoshes, right? Yep. To add a 20 megabyte hard drive into the back of it. I mean, I'm a complete, relic of those early days. So, I mean, I was online in 1986, right? So I'm the wrong guy to ask about this, but I do know, and I've worked with a lot of people who are overwhelmed by technology. And I guess I'll make a funny recommendation, which I do to everyone, which is YouTube. It's like, if you want to learn something, it's on YouTube, dude.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you the number of people who look at me slack-jawed and go, really? It's like, what are they not getting about this world that we live in?
Yeah.
Where everything is accessible, and there are thousands and thousands, millions of people who have shared their time for free to help you, right? We live in this amazing world. So I've learned a lot on YouTube in terms of various technology practices. So my whole, audio video rig here is patched together from listening to probably 3 or 4 YouTube channels that I have discovered over time. And I've learned how to set up my teleprompter so that it feels like I'm looking right at you. I'm actually looking through the teleprompter at my camera. I've got this new mic that I'm very excited about, which has got a nice little flat response. I didn't learn about this in a book. I didn't go to school for this. I didn't pay people money for this. I just am aware, and I just, let my fingers do the walking. And long-winded way of saying to anyone who is intimidated by technology is, you don't have to be. Have the vision of how you see your life unfold and your business unfold, and let that vision guide you to search, connect with other people who are doing it. Everyone wants to hear about it. I get people contacting me about this stuff and saying, so how did you do this? How did you learn about this? Do you have recommendations for me about software? How do you manage your clients, right? What software do you use for that? And I can take them on that journey about why I use what I use and how I discovered it. And I'm always looking for ways of upgrading it. So that's a kind of a breathy way of talking about technology adoption and how accessible it is for everyone, young or old, who are jumping into these businesses.
Yeah, what beautiful, tangible advice. Like it's so true. I'm lucky as well. Because I've been on the internet for, doing businesses for about 8-9 years. I'm relatively good. I can figure out problems pretty fast. But when my girls came along and I'm suddenly a dad in a house full of ladies, and I've got no man skills at all when it comes to like, oh shit, we got the toilet seats broken. Guess where I go? YouTube. Or if I've got to install some, our garden after these floods is just mud. So I'm going to install some AstroTurf. So how do you install AstroTurf? Freaking YouTube, man. It's the place to be.
Right. So how do you install a lock? Right. I've got to go install a lock on my gate, and my girlfriend's saying, so what are we going to do with I said, I'm going to get a video and I'm going to figure it out.
Absolutely. I think there's always time and place to figure stuff out. And especially with online business, there's someone's always done what you've done before. None of us are trying to make Facebook, right? We're all just kind of replicating what other people have done.
This also kind of goes to something you were saying before about digital businesses and about coaching businesses. And that is that if you look at the people who are creating content online. There's a range of polish to what they're offering, whether it's video, whether it's podcasts, whether it's written, whether it's their website. And, polish and style and the level of sophistication is great. But if you've got good content, don't worry about all of the other bells and whistles. You'll figure that out. The important thing is to not let the form of it inhibit you from delivering the value of it. So if you're really passionate about something that you know and can teach and can help other people do in their lives, go for it, because you will find your way as a coach, as a teacher, by offering it, by bringing people on who initially, if you want to do it for free, to kind of build yourself some traction, get some testimonials, et cetera. I'm sure you give this advice to people as well. Don't wait for perfection, right? Don't wait for it to be totally together. Make some mistakes, right? Fall down, pick yourself back up, learn your lessons, keep creating better content. There's always someone new out there who's going to be willing to discover you and take a chance on you.
Beautiful, beautiful advice. And definitely something that a lot of people I know need to hear. Progression over perfection. Luckily for me, I've never had much of an attention span, so I happen to move pretty quickly, rather than making things great. But and then you learn how to make things better quicker, and see your general quality. So you can make things pretty perfect in less time, and you don't hold yourself back by that. I can't remember what the word is. It's like you freeze yourself. Paralysis, perfection paralysis.
Analysis paralysis.
That's the one, exactly. Yeah, we hear that all the time in business.
Deadly.
And that's an interesting one, man. So now that we're on this lovely tangible advice, and we're actually talking about social media, I'd love to actually, pick your brain on how you have built your social media following, because 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. You've got I think about 80,000 on Twitter now, which is a realm I've never dipped my toe into, because it just seems like a losing battle these days. But when did you start these platforms, and what have you found to be the most effective ways of not just gaining followers and numbers, but actual engagement and fans out of it?
Right. So I would say all of this is really over the past 10 years of working it. And it really comes down to providing consistent content on these platforms and setting up a system to be able to capture ideas, curate content, schedule content, and really leverage the power of technology to concentrate your work within a very limited space of time to kind of batch a lot of stuff. And if you read all of the time management and productivity management people, they will tell you that you want to, for anything that you're creating, you want to do this in batches, right? Everyone from, starting with Cal Newport, and talking about deep work, you need to be able to establish a routine and a schedule where you are creating the content so that you can get it out consistently. And by getting it out consistently and having a clear point of view about what it is that you create about, what are the problems you're trying to solve? What are the issues that you address? What are the solutions that you offer? If you continue to deliver variations on those themes consistently, sooner or later, you're going to start to grow the audience, because you're the person that they can go to. And then, of course, the more consistently you create, the search engines start to reward you for that as well, because they're looking for that consistency. What's the Google acronym EAT, EAT, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. So you want to embody those three qualities in the content that you create, and sooner or later, it's going to come back to you.
Can I just get you to repeat the first line? How many years you've been doing your social media for?
It's about, I would say, well, about 10 to 12 years.
So for the people who are listening, are you confirming for them that if they don't have 10,000 followers in their first 6 months in business, they're going to be fine?
Yes, they're going to be fine. However, I
Wow.
think the lesson really is consistency, right?
Yes.
But it's consistency and it's point of view. So, you were talking about the TEDx talk before, and the TEDx talk for me was a real watershed, because up until that time, I had been consulting in a different area. I had been working since I left DreamWorks Animation in 2010 at the intersection of education, technology, and training. And I kind of came across the boomer reinvention thing and the career coaching over 50 a little bit by accident in that talk. And I was asked to do the talk, and I said, well, they said the topic of the day is transformation. And I said, well, do you want me to talk about the transformation that's occurred in the entertainment business over the last 5-10 years? And I said, you can talk about whatever you want. And I'd been reading about how older generations were having a hard time recovering from the 2008 recession, and people were having a hard time getting jobs, and that they had lost a lot of their retirement savings. So I thought, well, what are older workers going to do? No one's hiring them. They can't get jobs. They can't retire. Something's going to give, right? So I came up with this idea about, well, how do we take control of it ourselves? So that's why the idea of the kids are still all right, because we can, as I say in the talk, we can be leaders of ourselves, right? We can figure out how to get around the obstacles that are keeping us held back. And that's really what focused my content creation, because it became all about the various aspects, starting with those 5 steps in the framework. So figure out what your framework is as a coach. I'm sure you talk about this a lot. Every coach has to have a framework. You can't just say, I'll solve your problems for you. What do you got? Right? Anybody can do that. You have to be known for some particular methodology that makes sense based on who you are. That's what's going to attract people, because they go, oh, well, this person's lived that life. Maybe they can share something of that with me.
Yeah, that intellectual property, that signature system that you have that lets people know, how you get results and the outcomes of that. And I think what you just said about, framing your content around one, a handful of consistent themes, going an inch wide and a mile deep rather than a mile wide and an inch deep, is just hugely, hugely important. And I think at the beginning, it's completely fine to test a whole bunch of stuff and then see what works. Kind of like, DreamWorks did a lot of movies, and then they made 5 Shreks, because
that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Shrek works, so let's do more of them, and
I'll tell you, Shrek was, when it was in production, it was the orphan. It was the as one of the artists put it, Shrek was the project that they put you if they were going to fire you.
Really?
Because no one could figure out that movie. And it was in production forever. Mike Myers re-recorded the character 3 different times. I mean, it was a disaster. And then it turned out to be a hit.
My kids still love it today, man. My kids are 2 years old and they're watching it 21 years after it came out or something like that.
It's a great movie. Yeah.
Huge. Yeah, he kind of had like a sort of a meme rebirth on the internet lately in the last couple of years as well. Shrek just came out of nowhere in like Reddit and TikTok. It's all Shrek again. So, which is hilarious for me, because when that came out, I was 10 when it came out. And that's just hilarious for me that happened. Amazing. So I want to get one more piece of advice for you before I let you go. Yeah. Sure. Because we just spoke about inch wide, mile deep, having a framework, being consistent with your content and your methods. You've got another phrase, which is go small to win big, which is about niching and picking your niche or your niche, as you guys say in America. And this is another one, because there's a lot of coaches out there who, because they have certain skills, such as they've got a neuro-linguistic programming or they're great at business in general, they say, I can really help anyone. Why is it a mistake to say you can help anyone? And what should we do about it?
Well, the cliche in advertising is if you say that your market is everyone, your market is no one, right? And I think it is particularly true today because the noise of the internet is just crazy. There's just too much competition out there, and the only way to become known is to be in a niche or a niche where you can be really clear and defined about that message. So you don't have to worry about all of these other people and what they might want. Just worry about your niche. And it may sound counterintuitive to think, well, am I not narrowing down the possibilities? And I would say in a pre-internet world, perhaps, but in a globally connected world, your niche is much bigger than you're ever going to need. You're going to actually need to further differentiate yourself in your niche and really bring those personal qualities. It's back to the idea of reflecting and reframing. Those personal qualities that distinguish you from every other person in your niche, either because of something in your background, something in who you are, something in the experience that you've had. We all have unique intersectionalities based on our experience. I have this background in entertainment, so I understand certain things about how to talk to an audience. I have certain ways that I use 3-act dramatic structure in helping someone understand how to tell their story. So the more I bring those personal aspects into my niche, the more I'm going to appeal to a very clear subset of people who are vociferously positive that I'm the guy for them. And all I need is to really focus on those people and get that buy-in, because that's going to attract other people. And someone might say to me, hey, I know you do this thing around career transition over 50, and this happens to me a lot. And they'll say, look, I'm 35 and I'm not in that situation, but there's something that you said about this, this, and that, and I'd like to talk to you about coaching with you. Fair enough, right? So just because you're in a niche doesn't mean that you're only going to capture people in that niche. It just means that it's easy to understand what you do, and that's going to make you accessible to people in many areas.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't need 1,000 clients as a coach, right? We need like 20 and we're good for life, So I have exactly what you just said. I have to say that to a lot of, we do digital marketing for coaches. And when they have a lot of different areas they can help in, I say, we're going to run a campaign. We've got to do it in one area though. Who's it going to be? It doesn't mean they can't help other people. It just means that for this particular one, it's going to be much, much easier and more effective to go hard down this line. It doesn't exclude other people from your business, but try and catch all the rabbits, catch no rabbits. So, Mr. John Tarnoff, mate, what an absolute pleasure having you on today. I could talk to you for hours, and that is the exact reason why I'm going to cut it off there, because I think you've given us so much value. I want to keep people listening. I want to keep people engaged. And we're going to be linking all of your, socials and websites in the description of this video. So don't worry about the plugs, because I know you could plug for days and it wouldn't be worth it, because not everyone's listening 45 minutes into the podcast, because we're still getting there. We're on episode 70. We got a lovely collection of people listening, but we want to get your clips out about your 5-step method, about go small to win big, and everything you said today to get them out there. Wonderful. And share your message with the world, man. It's been absolute pleasure.
Hey, I've loved talking to you, Alex. Congratulations on your practice and all the good that you're doing for the coaching community. Keep it up, and we'll talk again.
I can't wait. Yeah, I'm 31, but I'm due for a quarter life crisis anytime soon. So I'll
absolutely.
I'll reach out to you when I can. Yeah,
All right,
myself
man.
and you. Yeah. Thank you so much, John. Anyone who is watching or listening live, I really appreciate you for doing that on the recording as well. It's been a wonderful week here at Coaches to the Moon. We'll see you next week with another exciting guest. One more big thank you to John Tarnoff. And for anyone who's listening, thank you so much.